Hello there. I am sorry. Well, no, I'm actually not sorry, but I'm going to gush for a little while. Peter Cullen, the voice of Optimus Prime, is one of my heroes. Why is he one of my heroes? Because he's an absolute legend. The man voiced one of the most pivotal characters in all of media, a father figure for all of us children of the 80s. I still remember running to the television with my bowl of cereal, watching Transformers, and then later in the evening, we get to watch Voltron. And I was 100% convinced that Optimus Prime existed in the world of Voltron. Why? Because Peter Cullen was the narrator, and I could tell that their voices were the same. I really can't say enough about the man, and I don't really think any compliment I could pay him here would do him any justice. Just my respect for him is so well known in my family that one of my favorite gifts I ever received was an 8x10 picture of Optimus Prime with Peter Cullen's signature. And one of my biggest regrets is that I've never met the man in person. Anyway, what brings us to worship at the altar of Peter Cullen today? CBR wrote an article. Transformers, Peter Cullen recounts his audition for Michael Bay. Peter Cullen, the original voice actor of Optimus Prime, reveals how he auditioned for Michael Bay and reprised the character in Transformers. You see, as I was going through this article, something came as a big shock to me. It seems that the I won't say the original movie, the first Michael Bayverse Transformers movie came out in 2007. That was 15 years ago. That means there's people out there now, they could be kids or they could be in their 20s, who are, whenever Bumblebee came out, they got hit with a wave of nostalgia. And that just blows my mind. Because as I watch these movies, I'm reminded of the 80s cartoon. And now people that are seeing the new Transformers shows coming out, or the new Transformers movies coming out, like I guess they got one for Beast Wars that's coming out here soon. They're going to be watching those and thinking about the first Michael Bay films. And feeling nostalgia about it. That just blows my mind. Perhaps I'm an old man trying to come to grips with the fact that I'm old. Or maybe some part of me feels a little warm in the heart. That something from back whenever I was a child is still appreciated today. But yeah, going forward, I was a little surprised reading the article that Peter Cullen had to audition. You would think he would just show up and say, "I'm Peter Cullen, bitch." Okay, I can't imagine Peter Cullen saying that. He seems to be a very polite gentleman. But let's go into the article. This tells us what we should already know. If you know who Peter Cullen is, you know that he was the voice of the original G1 Optimus Prime, and you know he came back for the live action films. The article goes on to say, to celebrate the 15th anniversary of Michael Bay's Transformers premiering in theaters, members of the media, including CBR, were invited to Paramount Studios to check out some props from the film, as well as hear from Cullen directly about his memories of joining the new approach to the series and working with Michael Bay. You know, goddamn, I would have loved to have been there. Just to see this live, this picture of Peter standing in front of Optimus Prime. Now, here was the part of the article that actually surprised me. Quote, even though he had been the voice for Optimus in the original Transformers, as well as other characters, including fellow Autobot Ironhide, Cullen revealed he wasn't initially guaranteed the role in the Michael Bay directed reimagining of the franchise. If Peter Cullen shows up to voice Optimus Prime in whatever project you are doing, you let him voice Optimus Prime. I don't care if Optimus Prime isn't going to be in your project. I don't care if you're making a Star Wars movie. Optimus Prime is now in Star Wars. He just needs to do that. Just show up to different movies. I want to see him show up to a rom-com and be like, I'm here to voice Optimus Prime. We got Peter Cullen. We have to make this happen. Skywarp! Peter Cullen's here. Yeah, get Optimus in this movie right now. I don't give a fuck what it is. Get Optimus in this movie. And then this part is why Peter is a legend. Him and Frank Welker and others. It shows their work ethic as compared to what we have going on now in today's woke Hollywood, where they say a line, then they have to go out and get a latte and then go out to their adult daycare centers that they think is work. Okay, the article continues. When I first auditioned for Michael, Cullen explained, a young gal was going to read the lines of the other character. We looked at the script and it said Ironhide. I actually played Ironhide in the cartoon series as well. So I said, well, I'd like to do a take for Ironhide too. Michael looked up and said, you can do that? Imagine asking Peter Cullen if he can do two voices. Sorry. Peter Cullen continued. So I said, well, I'd like to do a take for... Okay. I already read that part. Sorry. So after Michael Bay says, you can do that? Peter continued. I said, yeah, all the time. Frank Welker, one of the greatest voice actors of all time. He'd do Megatron in like 5 other voices. So we always end up talking to ourselves. Completely unaware of the skill of these masters. Could you imagine watching that masterclass of Frank Welker putting on an entire scene by himself? And you know he could. Watch the script, the credits at the end of any of the 80s cartoon series. You see Frank all over the place. And it's not like Peter didn't have range either. Whenever I was a kid, I never put it together until, of course, I started paying attention to the credits instead of running off as soon as the credits started rolling. That Peter Cullen was Ironhide and Optimus Prime. According to Cullen, he then delivered a line in Ironhide's voice, to the surprise of the actress he was reading with, and Bay simply asked him to keep reading Prime's dialogue instead. He left a positive impression on the director, though, who brought Cullen back for 2 more auditions and eventually gave him the part. Bay always had a really big smile on his face, Cullen recalled. It was just interesting to see how my voice was going to fit Michael Bay's concept of a 45-foot statue. How it was going to fit my voice. He was like, how are you going to make that adjustment? So I said, we'll just go lower. Peter certainly does have bass to his voice, and he can sound somewhat like a cowboy. Something I love about his voice. Part of me would like to think that Bay was trolling Cullen here a little bit. Making him come in and do several different auditions. I know if I could find an excuse to hang out with Peter Cullen on 3 separate occasions, I would definitely do it. But who knows? I don't know Michael Bay incredibly well, so I do know he likes his action scenes and he likes hot women, so I can't fault him too much. Going on with the article, I like how this is a mark of Peter Cullen's professionalism. He seems to always have something nice to say about the people around him. The article continues here. When we were in production with Michael Bay, who I thought was an incredibly creative guy, he was like a general, putting all that together and then going into a small room and telling me about what was going to happen, and I would come up with Optimus Prime. He would always be happy. He didn't know much about the characters beforehand, but he certainly learned quickly. Unfortunately, Peter let it slip here that Michael Bay didn't understand the characters. And unfortunately for people like me who grew up just completely idolizing these characters, it showed pretty quick in the film. I mean, unfortunately, there were certain characters that were just damn near unrecognizable for me. It's a good thing that Optimus Prime introduces them, because I wouldn't have recognized them otherwise. Of course, Bumblebee and Optimus are hard to miss because of their unique color schemes. But Jazz? I had no clue that was Jazz. None. And don't get me started on the last night. Optimus Prime says, "I am Optimus Prime," like what, 15 times? I'm like, the dude is usually kind of humble. He's not incredibly proud of himself. You know? Optimus Prime, he knows he's capable, he's confident, but damn, it takes a lot of arrogance to say "I am Optimus Prime" like 15 times. Sorry, I could both praise and condemn those movies for hours. So yeah, let's not get started. But yeah, I saw this article, and hearing the things that Peter Cullen had to say, or well, reading them. The man's a personal hero to me. He's awesome. And so I was like, the hell with it. If I can take up with a little bit of cyberspace to gush about him, well, so be it. Anyway, what about you? When did you become a Transformers fan? When did you become a Peter Cullen fan? This is Heretic Prince, and thank you so much for letting me share my thoughts with you.